Hello, welcome to Warblog. I'm I'm doing another video, but I do not intend to be keeping up this sort of pace of video. It's just sort of when you get sort of a bit stuck in it, it's sort of you find yourself doing it a bit more. But I thought I'd try again today to see how the AI could fare, and so I found a sort of a scenario, and it's the recapture of Nangawiko Mayana. And so we had all sorts of fun trying to get that. I was trying to get it quick and fast, with the AI. But the AI is actually pretty stupid. It's good at some things, and it's not very good at others. And when I finished it, I sort of said, here's the finished product. And it said, that's fantastic. Now I can see what you mean by these forces being up here and these being here, and as you stated, and I said, yeah, it's fantastic. And doesn't it look great? I mean, wouldn't it be sod's law if we'd got the forces the wrong way round? Because I hadn't really questioned what you told me. And it sort of agreed with me. And I went and looked, and yes, it got in the wrong way round. It was saying that these people had recaptured it and not the government. But it's quite good at the background. I mean, it can do things. And so anyway, at the end of that, I said, hey, you seem to be really great. And I was just talking to it generally, and I said, I could very easily have done, because I was pointing out the fact that neither of these are the Ukraine. It's not that I don't want to do the Ukraine, it's just sort of one of the drawbacks was that it was always the Ukraine, and you're constantly looking for something, and nothing's really changing, and it's a bit complicated. And it's all drones and stuff, and I mean, there's a lot of stuff on South Front, to be quite honest. I could be doing loads, and I wish I had. I do regret being slack. But it's not. It's just other things. But after that, I said to it, "You've done really well. Wouldn't it be great if I could just say to you?" Because it suggested these two scenarios. I said, "Give me a roundup of all the military sort of operations." Relating to Myanmar over the last week. Some of these actually covered 2 weeks, but so it did, and it covered the recapture of Nongwikio and the retaking of Demoso, as it's saying. And so after that, wouldn't it be great if all I had to do to you was say, write me a scenario for the retaking of Demoso. So provide me with a map, full map, and an order of battle. I thought I'll give it a whirl. I could have kept the map that it gave me, but it was just completely wrong. And then it messed the whole map, so I had to rebuild it myself from scratch. But it's sort of every edge was a river. Every edge, everything was a river. There was sort of like these were hills, and there was a little thing of hills there, and a little thing of hills there, and all these were hills. So it was this big, and I think there was sort of. And it was not. It was just a mess. It was just a mess because these maps are really complicated. I mean, just to sort of maybe put it into perspective, this is a map. This is what I've been. This is what I give it. It's an array. I just copied this because I wanted to replace everything with agriculture. So it's looking through this, and every one of these positions is an array position, and it can do this. So this is what I gave it. And as you can see, I've got quite a few of these things open, and it can do certain things. It can return the full array, but it forgets things so quickly. So what you've got in here is obviously you've got jungle hills, and basically it gave me this thing, and I wanted everything converted to agriculture. I asked it just swap jungle hills with agriculture. But essentially, it gave me everything, but it truncated the last 5 things, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it only went up to there, and then it was all blank. And it does things like that. And then it said, do you want this as a CSV or copy and paste? I've explained it to it a million times. No, I want it as a copy and paste because I'm putting it directly into the database, because I don't ordinarily do mapping with the raw array code. I use my own interface. I've got ways of doing things quickly. But the thing is, it's interesting because it will go from being really quite smart and clever to being totally stupid. So what it can do is sort of it can complete an order of battle with distributing, say, a reasonably sort of balanced number of lists of units, especially when it's when all the units are equal. When it, I mean, it did create most of this order of battle down here, and it creates all this stuff, and I haven't even read it. It's probably all wrong. But you know, so we started off with, and I think I explained this yesterday. We started off with the rapid support forces and added some militias in, and it understood artillery, and then I added in the aircraft at the end. So it can create an order of battle. So I seed this with one rapid support force and one Sudanese irregular company, and then it basically creates everything else. So I did that again here, and as you can see, we've only got 2 types of units because I really couldn't be bothered to go any further with that. And it created the balance of units, obviously, but it put these as the attacking and these as the defenders, so everything had to be swapped around. I had to create the whole map. It added a few places, and then it messed everything up. So in the end, I just added the places where it said it had edited them. So basically, it's the reason it comes up because the count doesn't work anymore. I don't know what's in there. It doesn't work. So Hotmail account, you can't access Hotmail accounts anymore. The only reason I let it go in there because I know I got to look into it at some point. I dread looking into it. It's probably full of spam. But so anyway, I created this, and at the end of it, I gave it a whirl. So this is why this one's here, just because I had to repair it. You know, it completely can't do it on its own. It would be really nice if I could just say, give me that. And what it's really bad on is spatial analysis. So it can do a spreadsheet. It can go in and replace things in this, so it can deal with this array, which I've just sort of shown you, and it can calculate the array, and it can figure out that it's got like 200, it's got 22 rows, or it's got 200 data points. There's 200 hexes in there, I think. I don't know, something like that. It can figure that out, and it understand that it's an array, and it can come back with an accurate map. So I can say to it something like, give me, for example, the distribution of the of this jungle, hill, and agriculture was created by ChatGTP. I said, take this map, and using your incredible intelligence of, you know, all the resources that you can get. So what we're saying is it's looking at maps, it's looking at all sorts of information on the internet to come up with a representation of the area around Nongwikio, as best it can. Now, I suspect that's completely wrong. I didn't really double check it. What I do know is that the rivers are right, so it's sort of good enough, really, for me. So, you know, because it's sort of saying that the city's right in the middle of all these hilly jungles, but that's sort of irrelevant, really. When I asked it for a map, oh god, yeah, I sort of saved this. Oh god. Right, so this, let's see if we can do this. This is Demoasso. This is what we're looking at. Demoso. This is what it looks like. I said to ChatGPT, create me just a graphical representation, because ordinarily I would copy this and I would underlay it underneath my hexes, and I would copy it, and you can see that let me put it over here so it's out of the way. You can see in here that I've sort of copied that. So what's happened is you can see that I've basically put the road in and put the lakes in. So there's the road and the lake. So all I need to do now next is put the urban areas in. So I'm copying that like a tracing. So there's nothing clever about that. When I give The thing is, I don't keep a lot of evidence. When I give ChatGPT the instructions to create me a map based on all its intelligence of the internet and that map and whatever it can get, thinking that it's pretty smart, this is what it came up with. Oh dear. You know, I mean, they're just not even similar. Hills. It's got a Gothic bridge. I mean, I have no idea what it's thinking. So you can't rely on it for anything. And I think the thing is, what I'm sort of half getting at is I should really keep some of the screen captures because they're just so hilarious. But so when I said to ChatGTP, I said, okay, we've got the map. The map's all sorted. Okay, I've done the map now. You don't have to wait. It did its little bit. I'm trying to give it the chance to sort of be helpful so that I can speed myself up, but it just takes longer. So I said, okay, you've got the order of battle. It sorted the order of battle out, and we can sort of see that there are this many mana troops and this many defending troops. There's not so many defending, but at the first it put them equal. And I said, it's not very good, is it, to be equal, don't you think? Because to attack, you've got to have at least 3-to-1 odds, and these are, if they're 1-to-1 and they're in a city, it's going to be more like 1-to-3 odds. And so it recalculated its odds and gave us this. So this is just what the AI did. So it was able to calculate at least that. And then I said, right, put the units on the map. And the first one it did was sort of okay. These units were sort of mostly here. One of these, well, it was all the opposite way around, so it was the wrong way around. So let's forget that. Well, let's not forget that, but you know, bear that in mind. So it had all the defensive forces pretty much in the city, with one of them over on the other side of the river, and all of these units were sort of in contact, so they were all sort of along the outside here. And I said, okay, that's fine. A couple of little points. We don't want this unit on the other side of the river because you can't get across, and we want at least one hex between the defenders and the attackers so that the attacker has the option about where to attack. You know, we don't want them starting in contact. I thought that's fair enough prompt. So it managed to get that right. So it can put the units on the map, and it does that by adjusting that map sheet I just showed you. By, you know, it knows how to work arrays, so it's okay at doing that, and it's not too large. But then it just decided to go mad. Not totally mad, but all of a sudden these units were all sort of like down here in a line below this. I'm just looking at look, this is Goit Bridge. It obviously got confused. I'm not even sure Goit Bridge is actually there. I haven't looked at this. I have looked at it, I think. Now I'm beginning to wonder whether or not I've even got this right. I must have. I think I did use. I think I did, but now I'm wondering. Now I'm wondering whether I actually even got this map right. Because I sort of trusted it, and it's wrong. All that effort in that map, and it's wrong. It is wrong. I'm laughing, but you know, it's sort of, I'm just beginning to realise, you know, what this means now, because I can't go any further with this. It's wrong. Let's just look. So now there's 2 games I've got to start from scratch. Oh no, yeah. Okay. This is what threw me. ChatGTP made that map for me. And I thought, oh, that's a good map. ChatGPT's made that for me. It must be pretty correct. It looks as though it's been copied from a map. It looks as though he's done everything you might expect it to do. Stylize it for a hex and counter sheet. I overlaid the hexes. That's quite good. It's got the river. It's got the road. I can see how that might work. And I've copied it. Oh, God. And there's me having a go at ChatGPT for being an idiot for getting the forces the wrong way around. This is actually what it looks like. So that's that. I'm going to have to start again. Fortunately, I've got a relatively clean map base that I can start with, because it's impossible for me to create a new map base generally, but I can get that other one and start from scratch and then edit and detail, so it's not going to be the end of it. But the thing is, I'm using ChatGTP a lot, and basically it's not very good at spatial things. It's really good at coding. And this is what brought my interest back up, because I've been using it for coding and it's spot on. It's perfect. It's brilliant. I can say, give me a new navigation. Oh, make this drop down. Oh, it's too wide on a mobile screen. And it sorts these problems out. And it just gives you all the code, and it's all proper. It doesn't make mistakes. It makes omissions. For example, it's quite clearly not done the responsive aspect of it. It's just put you to give you a navigation, or there's little things here and there. But you can edit those things yourself. And I just sort of, to be quite honest, I got quite excited, and I thought, well, obviously it's a lot better than it was 2 years ago. But to be quite honest, these are exactly the same errors. These are exactly the same errors that I was having when I first tried to get ChatGTP familiar with the hex and counter layout. I would say to it, this hex is 4L. Well, this hex is 5N, because that's what it is, and this hex is 4N, and this hex is 4K. What's this hex? And ChatGPT would think for 20 seconds or a minute, and it would say 5B. Well, 5B is like going to be there. But you can infer, because you know that this is column 5 and we know that this is column 4, so this is either column 4 or 5, but we know that's a 5, so we know that these are the 4s. 4, so this must be a 5, and that must be a 5. So that is a 5. So it's N, so it's going to be M. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N. So L, M, N. So that's M. So it's 5M. But it won't. You can say, you could explain that, and it will say, yes, you're correct. It's 5M. I will make a note of that. You can, fantastic. That sounds really good. It sounds like he's now understood what you say. So then you pick up another example. Okay, well, this is 4I. What's this one? And it will say 4B. No, we just determined that if this is, and you go through it and it just gets it wrong every time. It can't do it, and it hasn't improved. It can do an array because it knows that this is a big array, and it can follow the logic because it's an array like this. So it can fill this out, because basically an array is an array. It has like 70 positions in each row. Each entry has 70 positions, so it knows that this is position sort of, where the map reference is position sort of 22, and so it knows to update row 22 with this thing. So it can do things like that. But when it comes down to actual sort of spatial analysis, spatial recognition, it can't do it. So when I was getting it to sort of do this sort of stuff, it was basically, it just started to put them down here, and then eventually all the defending units were south of the river, and all the all the attacking units were occupying the city. And I said, look, you've got the initial startup. I was saying, put the attacking units near the edge of the board, maximum 3 hexes. And in the end, it put all the attacking units in this hex, all of them, all in 4A. And I thought, well, at least it's understanding something. And all these units were sort of like down here towards the bottom. And then I just adjusted them out here and I did this. But obviously the map is completely wrong. So I'm just going to call this more AI failures. I mean, to be quite honest, I'm not trying to sort of leverage AI to any significant extent. But I was sort of thinking, maybe it can do something here. But I think the only thing it can really do for me, because even getting it to do some basic stuff, because it just creates so many errors. You know, you can get it to do the basic stuff maybe after 3 or 4 turns, but I don't want to wait 20 minutes for something I can do in 5 minutes on the assumption that it can do it in 2 minutes, saving me 3 minutes, because it's not working out like that. Even if it's done it before, it's making errors again. For example, it just previously asked me whether I want that as a CSV or straight off. I said, no, I want it all cut and paste. You know damn well I'm cutting and pasting it into my spreadsheet, or you would at least give me that impression as an intelligent chatbot that you are aware of that. But it doesn't. It keeps forgetting that thing. And it said, this is a long array. Would you like me to split it up into small chunks for you? No, why would I want that? I need to paste the whole thing in one here. I can't go cutting and pasting small bits of it. So, yeah, I mean, this is a scenario that will not exist, because I'm going to have to basically override it and rebuild it. So this is a scenario. This is like a fantasy scenario. This scenario that doesn't exist, because it will be edited, it will be removed, and it will only exist in this video as an embarrassing reminder of how crap AI is. And there's me at the end of it saying, gosh, wouldn't it be stupid if you'd actually got the forces round the wrong way? Because I did recall subtly somewhere thinking that, because I knew in the Myanmar situation that the government were losing a lot. And so in this one, I seem to remember when I first read it, it was the government had come back. So, and I hadn't really sort of paid a lot of attention as to who was on what side. A lot of my mental effort was going into considering what AI was doing and how to prompt it, and looking at the results that AI was giving me. And I didn't look at the fine detail either of who was who. And I did actually say to AI at the end, I said, you got it wrong. And it said, yeah, but we work as a team. I present it, you provide me the raw details, I provide you with the output, and then you fine tune it, and you picked it up before going live. But you didn't pick up the fact that the whole map was completely wrong, because I thought it was quite a nice map. I just looked at it and I just thought, oh, he must have it right. That looks good. That looks like a proper map. That's got nothing to do with it. But it's even gone to the extent of putting in the Myanmar market. It's got Goitek Bridge, and this is the other one. This is supposed to be Demoso, which is the new one I'm doing, which we know is wrong. But he's got Goitek Bridge in both of them, so I have to even wonder where this Goitek Bridge is. He's got agricultural plains. I'm beginning to think that it's sort of somehow not very good. ChatGPT, it's just not very good at spatial analysis. And the reason I did double check this because I thought the way this road goes across the river is very specific. I thought that has to be very specific. Even that doesn't look quite right. You would have thought if there was a field that it would cut across the road boundary, and the road might sort of, it wouldn't join there at the corner, and it wouldn't be. I just thought there's something about this map that doesn't make sense, but I didn't think that with this. My suspension of disbelief was overcome. I was convinced straight off, even to the extent that I thought, hang on, can I do railways? Because I thought I had factors in there for railways, but I don't seem to. I thought I did, so I must be imagining it. or I can't find it. I don't think I can't find it, but I was going to put railways in there for some reason. One thing I did ask ChatGTP for, I said, if I give you the map, I said, if I give you the map, and it's, you know, let's look at this. If I give you the map and I say this is a supply point, which units are within 2 hexes of this road and are in supply? And it said no problems, absolutely no problems. Here's a phenomenally complex JavaScript code to tell you exactly that, and it gives you this code with such certainty. But considering it has got absolutely zero consideration of geospatial analysis, I'm not sure whether it's going to be right. I think maybe it might be, because if it has a way of calculating everything on this road and within 2 hexes of it, so that would be that. But you know, you're starting to wonder whether or not it's actually doing the right thing. I'm actually in a bit of a moment of awakening, really, because I'm beginning to realise now that ChatGPT is pretty poor. It's actually not worth doing it. But what I can do, it's giving me this sort of alert every day of, you know, conflicts, and I can say to it, I want something, because the things that it gave me today, I said this is rubbish, because it, you know, it's all about other things, you know, it's about, you know, Putin sort of says this, and, you know, I don't know. They weren't actually kinetic. I said I need kinetic examples. I need examples of kinetic activity where there has been a ground movement, not where there's sort of, you know, I think one of the reports was Russia bombs Kiev with missiles. Well, that's no good to me. You know, it's not kinetic, and, you know, etc., etc. But it can provide me with the reports, but. And it sped the game up, it sped the server up. So I'll leave it at that, because I don't want to sort of talk for much longer. And to be quite honest, I've got to go to bed. But I do want to actually sort of, I think, do some emergency surgery on this scenario, so at least one of them's correct. That's frustrating, but that's how it goes. At least I'm getting some progress. You know, I did point out. I said, you know, this is at least. It created this whole navigation. I said I didn't like the other one because there was a slight problem with the Z index, and I said, instead of solving the problem, I just said, just create me a new menu, and it did. It created me a new menu, and it's okay. There's no mouse over on these things, so I could say to it, give me a mouse over, but it's created this orange box itself, which I think is quite nice. It's responsive. I had to actually prompt it. I said it's not responsive, so okay, I'll sort that out, and it does. It sorted it out. You know, so I've been giving it huge chunks of the code from this site saying fix it, and it does, and it's really good. It's just you know, got the spatial understanding of a woman. I mean, that's a bad thing to say. I knew it was quite not appropriate, but you know, some derogatory term. It's not very good with spatial analysis. Yeah, but the point is, I said to it, it doesn't really matter what's happening, because, you know, I did this on the 13th. Okay, that's not so far off, but the last thing I did was in February. So there's this huge gap of literally half a year when I've done nothing. So, you know, ChatGPT is prompting me to do something, and I do intend to keep going. You know, because I do like these games. So now that there's, you know, now that the server speed is sort of pretty good, you know, it's sort of back to, you know, the thing to bear in mind with this. Oh, this has got a game replay. Let's run the timeline. I love these timelines. So we've got units coming down here. So I was saying to ChatGPT, look at that. This is all done with HTML. Oh, it's it's JavaScript as well. It's all done with basically HTML, JavaScript, you know, stuff like that. And no one else does anything like that. And it crashed. It didn't answer me. I remember that. But the thing is, it's quite nice. You know, it's sort of like, this is difficult to do, and no one does it. And I sort of feel a little grieved that it's sort of, to some extent, not really been used any you know, to any greater extent. I mean, look at the complexity of this map. I'm only a mad person would sit there putting in all those paths and tracks, you know, but I did. So like the blue person's putting a little defense in there. They're trying to do something. I don't know what. Probably they're retreating to this river to put a defense in there. They're coming over here to thwart this unit here, presumably. So they're forming a defensive line up here, and these ones are doing something. So now the red ones are moving again. It doesn't capture everything. There are a few, you know, when we're talking about complex things, there are a few complex things. But if you were to say to me, do this today, I wouldn't have a clue. So I said to ChatGPT, whatever, I can't remember what it is. I said to the AI, I said, I have no idea how I did this. And I said to it, do you know how I've done this? I gave it the code. And do you know how I've done this? And I don't think it could tell. Because usually it can tell. You can say, oh, you know, how's my code? And it'll say, oh, you know, you've got competing JavaScript libraries here. Oh, you're calling this JavaScript library before you call the other one. Oh, you're calling this JavaScript library, and then you're declaring your own JavaScript functions, and then you're calling the JavaScript library again, and that's overriding the earlier JavaScript functions that you set up. And it can spot all these things. It can deal with quite complex stuff, and it can tell you, I said, do I need this JavaScript on this page? Am I using it for something? And it'll say, no, you're not using it for anything, so I can delete it. You know, but I think I pretty much asked it, you know, how am I doing that? And I don't think it came up with an answer. I'm not saying it was stupid and couldn't figure it out, but maybe it just needed a bit more information. But what you can see here is the blue people are using all their troops to fight off these, and then they're sitting here across the river in the understanding that they won't be able to get across unless they come down here. So this unit's holding these two, this unit's holding these two. We don't know what this guy's going to do, but he's going to hold them off, with everything else coming to a big battle over here. And there's some reinforcements coming in. See, what they could have done was bring something down here to take that unit out, bring these ones up. That might have been gameplay, but that would only bring in 2 extra units. It's hardly worth it. I mean, basically there's going to be a big, I seem to remember playing this, but you know, this replay thing is just so phenomenal. Here we go, something's happening. Oh look, they beat them over the river. I must have forgotten to move them because they're so far down the map. I'm probably looking at it like this and just totally forgot. That's why they just sat there. And then look, they're going in for the counter. They're going in for the preemptive attack. I know, I've remembered to move them. Look, they might have done some attack. That's what we don't know. They would not. The replay doesn't tell you what the attacks are. But there's obviously something happening down there. So maybe they did got a 1-to-1. So he's reshuffling his troops around a bit. I see what's happening there. He's moved up to allow those people into that little gap. They've obviously pushed them back. Okay, so there's a retreat. Okay, there's another retreat. So presumably they had some battles, but and there's another retreat. And there's another retreat. So the blue people are totally beating the red people up. So the red units are probably quite heavily injured. But meanwhile, this small little unit is broken across the bridge and is coming up on Hungyen. They're sort of like, the battle is sort of naturally outflanking here, so we're bringing some tanks back. Now we realise that we could possibly lose the objective down here, so we're falling back to create a bit more of a defensive line. This is quite a good battle, really. These two little units, they're just winning the whole day. Look, we've got the entire army up here not doing very well. Because the only reason he's pulled back, I think, is because there's something going on down here. The problem with these sorts of games is that I just stop playing, fall asleep or something. So they won't be able to attack those units in the city. And they've attacked that unit there, look. So I'm falling back. Pushing these armoured units down there. Oh, go away. See what happens here. So it was a mistake to let them into that city hex, so they'll be difficult to get out of there. Although they might be quite fatigued. Well, it looks like that's it. I probably gave up at that point. That's the end of the playthrough. That was interesting. I think it'd be more interesting to play it, obviously, but to actually get a greater sense for how fatigued those red units are. I don't even know who they are. And how broken the blue ones are. But you got to realise that the red ones are actually 5-3s, whereas the blue ones are 4-4s, so that they're actually the same value. But the blue units are better at defence. It's interesting maths there. So I sit there and sort of think, God, you know, did I create that map? I mean, that's just like such a phenomenally complex map. It's lacking town names, it's lacking any sort of location details, and it's lacking any sort of particular variety in the topography. You know, it's just all grassland. I'm pretty sure we could make that really, really good by putting in some place names and, you know, just a few more variations on stuff. Yeah, anyway, I'll leave it at that because I don't want to sort of speak forever. I'm going to try and do the other stuff, and don't expect much from ChatGTP regarding magically summoning up historically accurate X and counter games. I'll speak to you later. Cheerio.